Welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my power rankings after the Canadian Grand Prix. So as always, this is going to be not just a Canadian Grand Prix, but this is going to be how I feel the drivers have been performing recently over the last several races. So we'll start obviously a bit of a new format. So I'm trying it out with this format this time. We'll see how it goes. So starting number 20th, who retired from this previous race, dropping one spot from my last power rankings, is Nick de Vries. And I think, for de Vries, he had a bit of a tough weekend, was out-qualified by Snowden again. I know he started ahead of him. And then the race was on a completely different strategy from Sonoda, so it was really hard to give an accurate comparison between the two of them. He then had that really clumsy move, I think, with Magnussen that contributed to both of them going down the escape road. So not fantastic, I thought, for de Vries. So moving down one position. Number 19, moving up one position from last race, is Logan Sargent in 19th. And for Sargent, I think it's not a whole lot to say. Qualified 19th, teammate made Q3, and he retired on lap 7, so with a mechanical retirement. So not a whole lot I can say about the race. Qualifying wasn't great, but there's not a whole lot I can say. So he moves up one position ahead of de Vries. Now, 19th and 20th, de Vries and Sargent have really been stuck there for the whole season. I think they haven't really done enough to show that they've moved up past those two places. So this is kind of where we get the rest of the drivers, and for me it's been a bit difficult to make this decision. But for the bottom 5 or 6 drop positions, it wasn't too hard. But for me, number 18, moving down 4 positions from last race, is Sergio Perez. So number 2 in the championship in the Red Bull, but 18th on my power ranking. So Perez, he hasn't made Q3 any of the last 3 races. He started 20th, 12th, and 13th in those 3 races. Qualifying has not been good enough in what is easily the fastest car on the grid. Qualifying trim, it's a bit closer, but still best car on the grid in qualifying. And the races have been not great. I thought this past race in Canada, he was behind the Ferraris, and realistically he should be ahead of those Ferraris. And while he was on a pretty similar strategy to them, I don't feel he capitalized on starting on that hard tire, whereas somehow the Ferraris were able to make that medium last quite a ways. And now the championship gap between himself and Verstappen, 69 points, and he's only 9 points ahead of Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, something that would have been almost unthinkable, like even 4 races ago. Number 17, dropping 2 positions, is Zhou Guangyu. So for Zhou, tough qualifying, qualified 20th. The race wasn't much better, was quite anonymous, and he was kind of in that lower midfield region where we don't really get to see a lot of the action. He made some good moves, kept it clean, I thought, but there's not really a whole lot more that I can say other than that he was behind his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Number 16, moving up 2 positions, and this is almost entirely because of qualifying, and that is Nico Hülkenberg. So qualified an amazing P2, dropped to P5 at the start. I think because it was dry, I don't think he had much chance of holding points paying position. He was really unfortunate though, I thought, because he pit right before the full safety car out, similar to Stroll and Gasly, and that really hurt their strategy overall through the race. And from there, he basically lost all that advantage that his starting position gave him. So he was basically in the position he normally would have been in, or where you would expect that has to be. But that being said, clean race. It was kind of chucked to the back through not much fault of his own, but really good weekend overall, I thought. Number 15, moving up 1 position, and maybe a bit controversial to even move him up at all after this weekend, but I have Lance Stroll. So for Stroll, comes recovery drive, finishes P9 after starting P16. He even, after having the same issue as Hülkenberg, pit right before the full safety car out, so he was miles behind. And I honestly thought he was not going to get points for most of that race. The qualifying was not great, I agree. I think for him though, he was unfortunately on the wrong tire at the wrong time. He was on the intermediates when the softs were fastest, and switched to the softs too late, so he didn't really have much of a chance, I thought, of getting out of Q2, even if he didn't get that spin. So number 14, moving down one position, an okay weekend, but overall not fantastic, I thought, and that is Kevin Magnussen. So for Magnussen, he got out-qualified by quite a large margin by his teammate Hulkenberg, but the last couple of races have been pretty good for him. And that being said, the race, he was kind of compromised by that incident with De Vries. I think that I put more blame on De Vries for that incident. But that being said, it was like a 60-40 move, not really a 100-0 move. 60% of the blame for De Vries in that one, I think. Number 13, also dropping one position, is Pierre Gasly. So for Gasly, a bit of a tough race. Had issues in qualifying, was impeded by Carlos Sainz in qualifying, so he was eliminated in Q1. The race was a bit tougher though. He again went on that really risky strategy, started on the softs and pit very early, and that's one of the risks where you start on the softer tire. It forces you to pit earlier than those who drive on the harder tire, because it gives them a lot more flexibility with strategy when you do have a safety car. And after that, he didn't really have much of a chance of getting into the points. That being said, he was able to climb his way up a little bit, but still not a fantastic weekend, I thought, for Gasly. Number 12, moving down one position from last race, is Oscar Piastri. So for Piastri, had a really nice start to the race, I thought. Overtook his teammate at the start and was running in a pretty good points-paying position for that first stint. The safety car, I think, and their decision to do a two-stop strategy compared to Ferrari's one-stop strategy, I think really hurt them. I don't think they were really ever in the same race, but I do think that it would have made, if they were all on the same strategy, I think it would have made for Ferraris and Perez's life much more difficult. And they were quite fortunate, the Ferraris, I thought, that pretty much all the other midfield teams decided to do a two-stop strategy. And Piastri was good. He did have that one moment with Albon, but he did finish ahead of his teammate because of his teammate's penalty. Number 11, probably one of the best drivers of the weekend, I thought a bit of an underrated drive, was Valtteri Bottas, who finished in 10th place in the Alfa Romeo. After starting, I think 14th, I believe, starting on the hard tire, doing a one-stop, really good strategy there by Bottas, and he was able to make the tires last and finishes P10 in the race, and he moves up 6 spots in my power ranking. So really good job by Bottas in today's race. And unfortunately for him, his form's been so inconsistent this year. Some races he's last, and some races he's having a really good race like today. I have seen that he's been getting damaged, and it's kind of unfortunate. And unfortunately with these cars, there's a lot of, if you get any kind of unseen damage, like Verstappen at Britain last year, it can cause such a massive performance deficit to your car. So number 10, so this is where things got really tricky for me. You have drivers between 6 and 10, and I don't think any of them really had a fantastically clean weekend, but they've all done a pretty good job before this weekend, so it was really hard for me to kind of decide where to put them. And so I've decided to put in 10th, dropping 5 positions from last race, is George Russell. So for Russell, makes that mistake, hits the wall, and he comes out and last, basically after the safety car. However, he goes on to that one-stop strategy, which actually brings him back into 8th place, and he looks like he could get some points. And if he had actually finished that race, I think he would have been more in 6th, 7th, or 8th place. But he does retire with that brake issue, and while it was a brake mechanical issue, I do think that the damage from his crash increased the risk of that issue. So I do think the two were connected, which is why I have him down in 10th. Let's see, number 9, here we have. Number 9, we have in the Ferrari, moving up one position, is Carlos Sainz. So along with his teammate, manages to make the medium-hard one-stop strategy work, the only team that I believe did this strategy. Really good strategy, I thought, for Ferraris. Their race pace was actually really good. Managed to keep Sergio Perez at bay for the entire race, and they're actually pretty close to the Alonso and Hamilton in second, third. So really, really good race for Ferrari. I think really unfortunate that they started so far down. I'm actually really curious how they would have finished if they qualified fifth or sixth, fourth place or so. If they could have been in that fight with Alonso and Hamilton. Number 8, dropping one position, still an all-right race I thought from him, but not amazing, and that is Yuki Tsunoda. He of course dropped had to start right from the back because of that grid penalty. He went on that really odd strategy, went on the hards on lap 2 and made them last for quite a while, and then I think pit again during the safety car or right after the safety car. I'm not quite sure, but basically finished in the lower midfield, beat his teammate, and I don't think points were really on the cards today, especially starting so far down and doing that really early pit stop. But still, nonetheless, a pretty solid week, an okay weekend overall, I thought, for Tsunoda. Number 7, moving up 2 positions today. I was actually quite impressed with this driver's race, and that is Charles Leclerc, who acquired quite nicely after qualifying yesterday. And, I think it's hard because he qualified, didn't make Q3, but then finishes 4th. So it's like, and of course, because I try to put more emphasis on the race and in qualifying, 4th place from that grid position is, I think, a really good result. The fact that they were able to make their tires last properly and actually did a one-stop strategy while almost everyone else did a 2-stop strategy was really impressive. So really solid race from Leclerc, I thought. Now, number 6, and this driver did get a time penalty, and that normally would move them down, but it was for non-driver related reasons. So, and this driver was having a really good race, I thought, before then, and that is, of course, Lando Norris. So I think for Norris, really good qualifying. First part of the race was pretty good. I know basically he gets that 5-second penalty because he slowed down too much under the safety car, and like I said in the review, and this was so that he didn't lose positions under that safety car. Otherwise, he would have come out probably behind Albon, behind the drivers who were behind him going into that safety car. And this also directly allowed him to then overtake Piastri right afterwards. So it's really hard to say how things would have gone anyway. But that being said, when you look at his driving, he was very fast, very clean, and did a pretty good job before that penalty. So number 5, I think the top 5 were pretty easy for me. It was this bunch here from 6th to about 11th to 12th I was having a lot of trouble with. But 5th, fantastic result for him, and that is, of course, Alex Albon, who moves up 3 positions from last race. So for Albon, really, really fantastic result. 7th place in the Williams, makes that one-stop strategy work somehow, and was able to keep all the other cars behind him because of the straight line speed of the Williams. And I think the only car that actually managed to overtake him on track, or one of the only cars, was Perez's Red Bull, just to show how good that Red Bull straight line speed is when it actually needs to be used. For Albon, this moves up Williams in the 9th place in the Constructors' Championship, and it moves him up, I think, where did it move on? It moved him up very high in the Drivers' Championship as well. Now, number 4, really good weekend overall. I think really he's been on a really consistent run of form recently, and that is Esteban Ocon. So finishing in 8th place, I believe, because of Norris's penalty, although I think he finished ahead of Norris anyway, so it wouldn't matter. But really clean weekend. I thought qualifying was quite good, and race was really good as well, really clean, really solid. And so stays in 4th place in my power rankings, Esteban Ocon. So now we get into the top 3, and the number 3 staying in the same position. It was very close between him and the driver in 2nd, but of course that is Fernando Alonso. Alonso 2nd place in Canada, really good result. He lost that position at the start of the race to Hamilton, but was able to get it back lap 23 after the safety car. So really opportunistic. I don't know how many chances he would have had given how strong Hamilton looked this race, but he made the move count and got that move done. So really good job by Alonso. Fantastic result this week. I think actually a little bit better than I was expecting for Aston Martin. Number 2, very, very close with Alonso. And if we have that kind of result again in Austria, I would expect Alonso to be ahead of Hamilton. But number 2, Lewis Hamilton, really good job. Finished 3rd. Of course, started third in the race, moved up to second, had a really good start. And then, of course, his teammate Russell was nowhere, so out-qualified Russell as well. And yeah, it just kind of brought it home for the podium. Looked like he might have a chance of getting a move on Alonso at the end, but it wasn't to be. Now, of course, number one, we already know this. We already knew who this was before this video even started. And that is, of course, Max Verstappen. 4th straight win. Another checkered lights to flag win. No fastest lap this time, so no Grand Chelem, and I believe led every lap as well. So, you know, I don't really think there's more to say. As I said before, he equaled Ayrton Senna's win record with 41, which is a fantastic achievement for him, especially in Red Bull's 100th ever race win, which means, of course, that Max Verstappen has 41% of Red Bull's wins in history, which is quite something to think about, given how many wins they had in that 2010-2013 era with Webber and Vettel. Webber and Vettel. So, that's all for power rankings for the Austrian Grand Prix. I'll be back, believe probably next week, late next week, early next week. I'm going to do one video, I think 1 or 2 videos between now and Austria. So please look forward to those. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.